Let me start with a definition. The Australian Renewable Energy Agency suggests that large-scale solar is probably known as a solar farm. Well, they're on top of it so far, which can generate anywhere from hundreds of kilowatts to thousands of megawatts of solar power. Strikes me that this is a fairly broad definition, and so for the purposes of today's talk, I want to define it or refine it a little further. I'm going to refer to those solar farms that actually can be built and connected into the medium voltage network. So anything that's sort of sub 5 megawatts AC. And these generators are a little different in so much as they can cover an area from, well, square metres up to about 6 to 15 hectares, depending on the framing system that's being used. So what I'm not talking about, or not referring to at least, is those solar farms that stretch as far as the eye can see. So with that in mind, this is the sort of project that I'm talking about. It's literally compact, it's within a confined space, and it doesn't necessarily impose itself, if you will, on the viewscape, as it's called. All right, so given the constraints I've imposed on the size of the solar farms that I want to address, or I'm referring to at least, I think there are three major opportunities, if you will, in this space for rural and regional Australia. And they are, of course, the on-farm or behind-pole opportunities that we probably know about, and I'll touch on briefly. There are some ownership investment opportunities that I'll address. And then there's what I'm suggesting is a renewable or regional business hub. And this is an economic sort of opportunity that can avail itself to regional and rural Australia that I think is being underplayed to date, and I'll talk a little more about that. So, of course, on the on-farm opportunities or the behind the pole, there's the usual suspects: rooftop solar, solar pumps, electric fences, and there are, of course, larger agri opportunities such as feedlots, grain processors, dairy operations, high volume irrigators, cold storage, those sorts of things. Some of these solar developments can be quite expensive, however, and funding options extend past the usual bank options. There are ethical investment firms and the like who can provide funding to these developments, particularly with power purchase agreements, if there's one of those in place with the end user. So there's a host of funding opportunities for those who want to pursue a on-farm or behind the pole type option. As pointed out earlier today in one of the other sessions, not everyone is located in one of the renewable energy zones. So what about them? Do they miss out on these opportunities that are presenting themselves? And I believe there are other pathways, and this is one of those pathways. There are, in fact, 140,000 substations in New South Wales alone. Obviously, not all are available for a medium voltage sub 5 megawatt AC solar farm connection, but many of them are. And even a fraction of them could generate a very substantial amount of power. And I see extraordinary opportunities for rural communities in this space. This photo here is an 8.8 megawatt DC solar farm west of Moree. It's situated on 6 hectares. What's unique about this solar farm is that it's owned by a farming family and their friends. It cost about $9 million to build, and that's a hefty sum. And as mentioned to me by one of the owners, they could have bought a lot of land for that amount of money, but instead they've chosen to diversify their income risk. In times of drought, they are earning income selling power into the grid, certainly on the wholesale market. And when the seasons are good, they earn money from the property and selling power into the grid. So local farmers and business people can get together, build and invest in these sorts of projects. And you don't have to have a huge bank account or be a multinational. Members from the community can join together to fund the development and the siting of these projects. Not everyone has the best site to connect to the grid, and not everyone has enough cash to fund one of these projects. But if you join together, then the opportunity to collectively build a solar project increases. And there are retail investor opportunities as well in this space. Companies like Domicon will provide a retail investment platform which allows you to then bring all of the members of the community. So you can have sophisticated investors at a certain level, and you can also have people from within the towns and around other farmers who can invest in a retail level. So we're talking sort of $2,000 investment monies. And so you can make these projects truly community and community orientated. It's worth pointing out that there are, of course, limits to the number of generators that can be located in any one area. Obviously, the network has constraints, so achieving a connection offer from the distributed network provider is a bit like getting a water licence, because once the allocation's taken up, then that's it. And as a note, this process to get the connection offer can be expensive and can take time, so it's better to engage sooner rather than later. In our local community, or local government area of Uralla rather, over $12 million of electricity alone pours out of that shire into the cities and or overseas bank accounts. If we collectively get together to own and operate these sorts of projects, we can help reduce the drain of cash from our districts and communities. And if governments at all levels support these sorts of developments, then there's numerous opportunities for them as well. The network exists there already, so there is no need to seek investment in large major transmission lines. And many smaller condensed solar farms diversifies the generation risk across the state and provides that real local economic investment opportunity for those communities in which they're sited. Okay, moving right along because we're going to try and tighten up some speed here. Regional Australia is in a constantly evolving state to maintain economic viability and to seek out further opportunities to shore up their respective local economies. This independent local thinking is the key to arresting the relentless centralisation of the economies and subsequently the populations in regional areas. However, we need to change the way we think about renewable energy. It's not just rooftop solar systems. While there is certainly an opportunity and need to supply the wholesale electricity into the grid, renewable energy generation offers a much more flexible range of solutions to the energy needs of the emerging green economy. Make no mistake here, the economy is evolving in favour of renewable technologies. The greatest opportunity for regional Australia lies in the decentralised electricity generation model that can supply wholesale electricity locally. Renewable technologies can provide local electricity cheaper than the national grid can. This is essentially the sort of model we're talking about. This is a renewable precinct with a generator, with behind the generator businesses taking their power essentially from that generator. This provides the opportunity, and the real jobs, the generating jobs, or the build jobs at least, come and go. They're not sustainable, they're not long term. If we have something like a regional precinct like this, then the light industries that can fall out the back of these types of developments provides rural and regional Australia, I think, with an economic opportunity that should at least be considered. And it is being considered. Barcaldine in Queensland has Roscano up there. They're considering exactly this model. There's a model being proposed for, Uralla on the tablelands in New South Wales. So I think that this is where some really exciting stuff can be developed and pursued. I hear the buzzer going, so I'm going to jump into the last couple of slides. I just want to end and highlight a couple of probably obvious points. Despite the recalcitrance of some in the political halls of power in Canberra, it's pleasing to report that tradies and farmers will be able to buy and operate their utes, and the signs appear to suggest that the weekend associated activities will not die as a result. Finally, we don't want to forget the opportunities that hydrogen offer us. Ladies and gentlemen, these advances are upon us. We did not move from the horse-driven carriages to cars because we ran out of horses. These technologies are becoming cheaper, cleaner and more efficient. The opportunity to provide the fuel source and for rural Australia to take advantage of these developments is here, and we need to act now. We are limited only by our vision of the future, our imagination and our desire to embrace the inevitable and our courage to do so. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much.